For so much of our lives, we have been reacting. Our behaviors in addiction are reactions to something. We have been reacting out to life. What we want to move into in doing this work is responding to life and then actually proactively creating the life that we want. There will be things that get in the way of that, not because they're evil, not because it's some external force trying to block you or sabotage you. It's just stuff that's going to come up from within your own self. The enemy's within. There's no enemy. I'm just teasing. Just different goals. Your ego self has different goals than your highest self. They can work together. They can partner so long as the higher self is in the driver's seat. And I'm talking about our conscious creator self, not our reacting from old experiences, old triggers, old traumas self. That stuff's going to come up. I guarantee it. It absolutely will. Until we clear this stuff out, it's still there. Easy enough, right? If there's a wound that we have, every time something touches that wound, it's going to hurt and we're going to react. Even if it gets infected enough, like let's say we have a gaping wound on our arm that we've had there for years and it's festering and it's infected. If the wind blows, it's going to hurt and we're going to react, right? Like a wounded animal. So the work that we do, the work that I do, the work we do in the Illuminatorium is actually clearing those wounds out, cleaning them, healing them properly so that there's no wound there at all. Then people could, push it all they want and there'll be a scar there, a beautiful, amazing scar there, but there's not going to be the wound. So the stuff's not going to hurt you anymore. You won't have the triggers anymore. The buttons won't be able to be pushed because they won't be there anymore. Until then, they're there. There are triggers, there are buttons, there are wounds, and they result in reacting out. In order to have an effective action plan, you got to know what they are. That means becoming very familiar with your triggers, the things that cause you to react out. That's going to require some observation without judgment, just seeing what they are. And sometimes that happens backwards. So we find ourselves reacting out. Maybe you're still in active addiction. So let's say you find yourself watching pornography, you've reacted out. Now it's time to explore what you have reacted to. What came before that? What was going on emotionally? What happened in your day? What's going on in your relationships? What perception of that experience came up in you? Knowing what triggers you is essential. It's that self-awareness part. It's essential for being able to do something about it. You can't be proactive if you don't know why stuff is happening. And these aren't acting out behaviors coming from nowhere. They are reacting out behaviors coming from something. Part of an effective action plan is knowing what that something is. So observing yourself, recognizing what triggers you is step one. Then you can do something to alter that. So let's say every time you go see your folks, you react out. Perfect. You're like, oh, every time I come over here, I end up watching pornography. We'll just stick with that example. Great. Now you know that going to your folks is a trigger, and you can set up things beforehand to ensure you don't react out after. Now, the healing of why it's triggering for you to see your folks is work that needs to happen with your team. That's the work that we do initially in the Illuminatorium is figuring that stuff out and then actually healing it. In the meantime, for your own plan is to then set up something to ensure that you are proactive before it even comes. There's no reason this stuff should be a surprise. Crossing your fingers recovery doesn't work. I'll just be better this time. I'll just do it better this time. I just won't react out this time. Yeah, how's that working for you? Probably not great. So having something planned, maybe that's bringing your team in. All right, team, I'm going to see my folks. That results in me feeling a lot of discomfort or shame, or it ties me back to my initial trauma, or they, cut me down, say all these horrible things. So I need to check in with y'all beforehand. I am going to bring in my gratitude practice. I will be countering that with these things. I'm going to reach out to you after. I need extra support after. I need somebody I can hang out with afterwards. I'm going to need to up my meditation. And you actually write out a plan for what you're going to do in that situation. You will create these for every reacting out trigger you have. I realize that sounds like a lot of work, but active addiction is a lot of work if we're honest. Having a plan in place takes work up front, but it's going to make everything so much easier and actually require a lot less effort. If you aren't sure what your triggers are, if you don't know how to find them, if you don't know how to observe yourself and figure these things out, if you don't have a team and you have no clue on what to do around any of this stuff, I want to invite you to come with us in the Illuminatorium. That's exactly what we do in there. Everybody's at different levels and we all work together as a community, as a team, as a family, as a tribe, so that we can all heal together and thrive together. So we don't do this stuff alone. And again, if we're not your jam, I'm not your jam, find a system that is something that is holistic, that's going to help you not just deal with the symptoms, because that you're just going to have to do that for the rest of your life, but to actually master the self underneath those symptoms so that the symptoms just disappear altogether. It's really helpful to also start listening to those excuses that come up that make you feel entitled to react out, the excuses on why you shouldn't do this work now or you don't need to do this work now, and have a plan in place for those as well. How are you going to counter those excuses? What are you going to do when those come up and you know they're going to? Have a plan beforehand. When you're in a strong moment, make your plan so that strong version of yourself can help the version of yourself that needs it when it's already triggered. When you're already triggered and you're already engaged in that part of the brain where addiction lives, that's not a time to start trying to have a plan. You need to have it already and not in here, out here, written and with your team so that you already have something in place to help with that when you're in the middle of that trigger, and you'll have support for it and you have a plan so you can get yourself out of it. Your strong self can get your struggling self out of that circumstance. You can move into that space of sobriety, having it, holding it, having it with ease eventually, so that you can do the healing in your brain, so you can develop the self-awareness, so you can be comfortable sitting in discomfort, so you can lean on your team, so that you can make conscious choice to proactively co-create your boldly satisfying life.